All right. So on this next project, we're gonna have a dot. It's gonna show up for a period of time, and then it's gonna go away, and then it's gonna pop up in another spot. So we're gonna have the world that is gonna spawn these dots every so often, and we're gonna do that by creating a step counter in the world and increment that. So every time that the world acts, it's that step counter is going to keep going up. And then every time that the step counter is a multiple of some value, we want to add another dot to the world. So how do you know if a variable is or a number is a multiple of a different number? So let's take a look at that for a moment. So this is, if you are familiar with BlueJ, this was Modulus. So here's some starter code. This is in should look familiar. This is a BlueJ, not Greenfoot. And so if I wanted to output, do this, all right, so I'm going to say shout multiple every time that counter is a multiple of 5. Well, I could do something really tedious like this. So, and say if counter, if that equals 5, then I'm going to system out dot out dot println multiple. Maybe. All right. So that's good. I don't need curly braces because that's the only line. And then I could just keep on, do this 1,000 times, right? So then I could do another if statement, and instead of it being, this is going to be 10, and then 15, and then 20, and then 30, and so on. You can see pretty quickly that that is going to be just a pain in the butt to deal with. What if the guy plays all day? He's really good at this game. Do I have to keep on? How high do I have to keep doing that? So this is an inefficient way of testing. Is it equal to 5? Is it equal to 10? Is it equal to 15, 20, and so on? So to do a multiple, that requires some division. So I'm going to divide counter by the number that I want to see if it's a multiple of. I don't care how many times it goes in. What I care about is what is the remainder. So if it's a multiple of 5, then the remainder is going to be 0, right? So if counter is 12, all right, and I divide 5 into 12, that's going to go in a couple of times. I don't care about how many times it goes in. I'm just worried about that remainder. So it's going to go in twice with a remainder of 2, all right, for 12. When I get to 15, it goes in 3 times. Again, I don't care about that. I care about what is the remainder. The remainder in that case is 0. So now it is a multiple, and I want to shout that out. So how do I do that? So this is the symbol for division in Java, just the slash. Perhaps that's an obvious thing. What isn't obvious is how to define the remainder. So this is kind of like a division problem. You see the little slash on the percent sign, but so that is a percent sign if you can't see it. So this is doing some division, and this is returning what is the remainder. So I'm going to divide counter by 5, and I'm not interested in the number of times it goes in. I'm interested in what is the remainder. So if that double equals 0, so if the remainder is 0, then counter is a multiple of 5. And in that case, I want to system out, system.out.println multiple. Like nothing better than a good exclamation mark. Right now, counter is 0. All right, so if I divide that, there is no remainder, so it will output that. So we can increment counter. So what we've been doing is this. We've been writing counter equals counter plus 1. And that, again, if you're a CSPer, that looks that should look similar to the set equals get plus 1. kind of tedious just to add 1 to it. So there's another way that we can increment by 1, and that is with plus plus. All right. So this is just a shorthand notation that says go get counter, add 1 to it, and reset counter back to that new number. All right. So counter plus plus is a way of adding 1 to my variable counter every time that line gets hit. You can do the same thing with subtraction. Right? I can subtract it by 1 with a minus minus. And again, so what is it going to do? It's going to get the counter. It's going to subtract 1. It's going to reset counter back to that new value. I want to add 1 to counter, so that's going to be a plus plus. If you're familiar with the language C, there's the language C, and then there's a language called C++. That's just a little bit better than the language C, right? So when they came up with a new version of C, instead of calling it like C 2.0 or something like that, they were little computer science humor. They said C++. So if I run this, again, counter is going to increment by 1, and maybe I also want to see what this is. So I'm going to do another system out print line, and that's going to be counter. So I'm just going to see all those numbers increasing. And I want this one to stand out a little bit. So I'm going to tab it over, and this is an escape sequence. This is kind of above and beyond the call, but we'll come back to what this is going to do. That's going to tab over. So all of the numbers are going to be on the left-hand side, and multiple is going to be tabbed over, and so it will stand out every 5 times. So I'm going to compile that. Here is my modulus tester. I'm going to run that. That went pretty quick. And again, so you can see every multiple of 5, it's outputting. That was the output, and there is the word multiple tabbed over. All right. So that's the key thing to note is two things that I want you to take away from this. One is how to find the remainder when the remainder is equal to 0. Again, we have to do the double equal sign. That is the first thing. And the second is, here is a quick way to increment a variable by 1. And I can increment it going up, and I can decrement it going down with minus minus. All right. So there you go.